is this? Like, what are they doing? I didn't see the correlation between them working on the church, I guess.
Yeah.
Construction people.
On video? Boy. You need to comb your hair and smile. Okay, that's better.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. Oh, geez. Sweet.
Sold his house and lived in a...
That's what he did, in a fifth wheel or trailer, I guess, camper.
The camper. Debbie can get you another copy. Sure.
Monday night football is going to be starting, so you got to speed this up just a
All right, I will. Sure.
Patrick didn't get a very...
I went through all those that ain't in there, so.
That was last meeting?
yeah, it was in the packet for the last meeting.
Maybe down to about 45 seconds.
I went through this.
You know what that thing is on the cover? You know what that thing is on the cover?
A little bit of change in
Whoa!
I guess they were.
Mama.
I guess, yeah.
All right then.
God, I was trying to tell you something.
Must be where that part goes.
Guess it's cover.
And we got that on video.
There were no flies or anything, right? Yeah, that's good.
Some spiders in there.
No, I thought it was like, you know,
Like a
the
screen.
school, the
This
screen
old
thing,
screen, like
yeah.
when
And
those
I'm
would
like,
like.
wait a minute, there's no screen back there.
Oh, you don't need a ladder.
It should be.
It'll just hang there,
It'll
right?
just hang there, no
It'll be
worries.
Block
fine.
can fix it.
Yeah,
It'll
we
stand on
got
the
big,
desk.
big guys, man.
He can stand on the desk.
You're on
Yeah.
video-
Contract
you're on
grid.
video, so smile. Turn around, Pat, give us your best life.
If we had a new city hall, that wouldn't happen. Just a point of interest.
You got an extra 10 million laying around?
Uh-huh. I buried the extra out in the playground. We have it on.
Grab my drink.
We have it on video. Who fixed that? So.
Yeah. Don't charge.
Dust
All right.
bunnies.
In case it happens
The bill will
again.
be in the mail next Tuesday.
Who wants to switch with me?
Nope.
I think not.
Test it. You're okay. All right. Are we ready now? Okay, Tim's okay. I'd like to call a Ferrisburg City Council meeting to order tonight, Monday, August 20, 7 o'clock p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hop,
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Here.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Here.
Councilmember Twa,
Here.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Here.
Councilmember Carlson,
Here.
Councilmember Blease. Here.
Invocation tonight will be given by Councilmember Twa, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help us as we gather together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that you would challenge each other to reach higher and further to be the best that we can be. We ask this in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
Down to public comments. At this time on the agenda is for any citizen to direct brief comments or questions to City Council. Time for public comments will be given when an agenda item is discussed. If you have a comment or question, please raise your hand to be recognized by the mayor. After being recognized by the mayor, please stand, give your name and address for the record. Proceed with your comment or questions for 3 minutes, or limit your comments for 3 minutes. The City Council meetings are now being live streamed and are available on YouTube. Any public comments?
Lisa Royce, 17700 Navajo. I was at the rec commission the other night, and went for, the renaming of Coast Guard Park. And I was just wondering, when was the last time Coast Guard Park had any type of facelift on its own, like the equipment for the kids? I know when I had my daycare and stuff, I used to go over there and the wood chips haven't been freshened up or the merry-go-round or anything. And I know that the rec commission, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Belize, they were gonna talk about some stuff with, you know, doing a memorial or something, and possibly at the entrance, and I was just wondering if they're gonna get volunteers and stuff, if it wouldn't behoove us to extend it a little more for, you know, freshening up the equipment. I know it's been there for at least 21 years and hasn't changed, so I think if we're gonna, you know, look into doing something on a memorial for Coast Guard Park, I think we should dive in and, you know, freshen up. So I know that you did do something for the top of the tennis court because kids were in there doing firecrackers on it and they ruined the top. Am I right, Craig? I mean, that's pretty much the only
Basically, yes.
big thing that's happened over there besides the yellow things on the fence for the baseball diamond, but the actual equipment, I mean, I don't know how often they put wood chips in there, but every time I go in, the littlest of the little kids can't swing on the swings because they can't touch. I can't even touch, so I know they can't touch. So I just think if, you know, when the rec commission comes back to do something, that we look at it on a whole to see if we can get volunteers if they're in there to do something. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to respond to that. I was talking with, I think it's Jason. He's a Boy Scout, local Boy Scout troop. And he is looking into doing some stuff with facelift and making some signage and stuff, because that was mentioned at the rec committee. So I'm going to be meeting with him, and I'll bring that up if it's something they want to work on.
Is it about one of the agenda items? Yes, and at that point. Okay.
G. McQuaid, 19136 Maiden Lane. I just wanted to thank Councilwoman Kennedy for your service during these difficult times. We've had friends and family go through something similar, and just want you to know that you're in our thoughts and prayers. So thank you, and hopefully getting entertained by knuckleheads like me takes your mind off things. The other thing that I wanted to ask about was North Shore Drive. We talked about that in the previous council meeting, and that project, which is in joint collaboration with Grand Haven. I'm concerned after the last meeting that Grand Haven is going to have something wonderful and Ferrisburg is going to have something that's not as nice. And I'm looking for consistency down the road. That's really the Malibu of Michigan, as they say, North Shore Drive. And I think we should take time to understand exactly what the plans are and how to best use those grant monies. And perhaps what we want to do is a work session or another open house like we did for the park. Thank you.
Craig, quick question. We amended our thought process to comply with what Grand Haven was going to do from the city limits out, correct?
Direction we got from city council at the last meeting was to have the 2 travel lanes and 2 5-foot shoulders on each side.
Am I correct in assuming that that's what Grand Haven was going to do the rest of the way out to the pier?
I haven't heard that for sure. They were looking at different options. I haven't heard which option they decided on yet.
Okay, well, obviously, I'm agreeing with Gene that whatever we do should be consistent with what they do, so it's the same all the way out.
Well, they were even looking at an 8-foot parking lane on the west side.
I don't know how they're gonna get that with the houses as close as they are.
I don't know either.
Last I heard from some Grand Haven city council people was that they were looking at 5-foot bike lanes on both sides. That was as of the concerts when I sat next to one. That was their leaning, but no final decision has been made yet.
I'll check and see if they got a final decision yet.
Just update council on the results as you find out.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Yes.
Arlene DeYoung, 16927 Lake Road. Just wanted to pass on a comment about a job well done. Last week there was a water break on our road, and the city crew worked around it, kept our water on, and They were down in the hole from 8:30 in the morning to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I just wanted to let you all know that they are doing a fine job, and we really appreciated having water that day.
Okay, moving down to 6, consideration of approval of a consent agenda. We need to add in under 7A1. Under new business, we need to add discussion and take action to make the the budget adjustments for the local street maintenance department, street construction department, and street maintenance department. And that information was on your desk. It was given to us by staff. So that would be 7A. So back up under 6, consideration for approval of consent agenda. A, approve the August 6, 2018 City Council meeting minutes with the correction that it was Councilmember Twa that was absent, not Councilmember Belize. And then 6B, approve a recommendation by Fire Chief Mike Oldhoff to appoint Mr. David Peterson to the position of lieutenant.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passed. Moving down to new business. With the discussion, take action to make the budget amendment, this local street maintenance department, street construction department, and street maintenance department. And Craig, you provided us with these adjustments that need to be done with the budget.
Right. We're making a budget adjustment. We're adding $5,500 to a equipment rental, a contract equipment rental, and then taking $5,500 away from engineering fees. We're just moving money around it in the same account. The bottom line is not changing at all.
Approve the budget amendments as presented.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passed. Moving down to 7B, 7A, excuse me, discussion, take action if appropriate to approve a quote by Northern Pipelines for $92,607.32 for the Willow Drive water main improvements, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all necessary documents. Okay, and that was information that was provided to us by Preen and Newhoff.
This is a project that the city's been working on for a period of time. Out there by Willow, there's been a water break 3 times, one with the main and 2 water services, and that was due to the cathodic protection that was in there from the gas company. That system has been removed. City Council authorized engineering on this replacement of the water main at their March meeting. We've taken bids. We got a good bid in from Northern Plumbing. The reputable contractor, they're the one that did the water main for Gateway Church recently on Maple Street Extension. Staff is recommending that we award the contract to Northern Plumbing. When they do this project, West Spring Lake Road is going to be shut down for a period of time. It's probably going to be a 3-week project. They have to open cut West Spring Lake Road, so we're expecting 4 or 5 days where that street's going to be closed down. That's why there's a detour in the back of the package.
Greg, we don't have an issue like we had on Virginia where they're gonna dig and go to China.
No, the guys have already dug it up a couple times, fixing the water break on the services and the water main.
Okay, so this is,
not as deep.
okay. The other question I got is, do we have any recourse against gas utilities? They tied on to our service lines to whatever it was. I don't remember the term, but they're compounded the issue, correct?
Well, I think they were discharging into the soil, which made the soil bad for a water main, which added corrosion to the water main, which caused the leak.
So there's no recourse as far as...
They weren't tied to the main, no.
Okay.
They were tied into the ground.
And that has been remedied? That's not...
Has been removed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, can I take a motion at this point?
I'll make a motion to accept the Northern Pipeline for the amount of $92,607.32 for the Willow Drive water main improvement, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign on that.
Support.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passed. Moving down to 7B. Discussion, take action if appropriate to accept the donation of approximately .1 acres of real estate located in the city of Ferrisburg and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all necessary documents. And Craig, you spoke with the realtor that was involved with this, with anonymous donor in regards to this
That's correct.
parcel.
A Ferrisburg couple has made a generous offers to the city to purchase some land at the corner of Pine and Third Street. They would like to remain anonymous. Their only stipulation if the deal transaction moves forward is that the lilac and tree bushes remain on the property. And if funding ever became available, it would turn into a little park where we have benches and picnic tables and maybe a splash park someday.
I've got a question there.
We've been giving away land to get more money on our tax rolls. Where 25% of our city is already parkland. Concerns with safety of pedestrians. If we attract a business down there, I think that'd be a lot more, better goal for us.
Yeah, my question is, what is the master plan currently?
It's listed out as commercial at this point.
Isn't that core commercial on the master plan, Craig?
Yes, it is.
The
Be the purple.
The post office is part of that also.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this. We've got numerous parks, 7, I believe, already in 3 square miles, and it exceeds 250 acres all total. Our parks.
Well, city parks,
Yeah.
Coast Guard Park's 80.
Yeah.
The Ferrisburg Nature Preserve is 40. Fire Barn's about 4 acres. William Ferry Park is about 2 acres. And Sunnyside Park.
No, the point that I'd like to make is every park that we have comes with a cost. It comes with a maintenance issue. I'm not against parks, but I'd like to know, when do we have enough? When is enough enough? The last figure that I saw for our parks, we spend over $80,000 just in maintenance of our parks. I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking that's high, that's above normal, only because of the amount of acreage that we have in a very small town. And as much as I would like to thank the people for making the offer, I'm thinking we need to keep this commercial and we need to attract business into our downtown. As busy as that corner is, and having a park just across the street and down a couple hundred yards, I don't know. I'm not wild about the idea of putting a park there.
No, I'm in agreement as well. It should be for commercial development.
Just echoing that, we have a park right across the street back
too close with Ferry Park, because equipment at William Ferry Park is set way off the road. This parcel wouldn't allow us to set any type of play equipment that far off the road.
I think, to amplify on Mr. Twa's comments, what is our line item for parks in our budget?
The Rec and Parks Department is right around 175,000.
Yeah, I thought when he mentioned 80,000, that was about 100,000 too low, as I recall from the budget. I think it's a generous offer. I think I'm in agreement that we should keep that as a core commercial piece of property and try to attract, maybe that's something we should present to the Chamber of Commerce, see if they could help us with that.
Alongside, and then we've already had public speaking in regards to improving some of our parks that we already have now. And I know the
Haven't done anything to that playground equipment out there in 20 years.
The FMP hasn't had any money put into it except for the dumpsters from last year.
Well, and same thing at Fire Barn Park, you know, I mean, we've been trying to find money for several years, as long as I've been on the council, to replace that playground equipment that we haven't been able to, you know, finagle the books to come up with that. We have the same issue at Ferry Park and Sunnyside Park, you know, I mean, once we put these parks in, you have to maintain them and keep the equipment safe for the kids. You know, that's a big expense. The playground equipment is shockingly expensive.
There's a lot of liability.
Well, I don't care about the liability.
I'm talking about for the manufacturers.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
Is it mostly for lawn maintenance or whatever? Because, I mean, we haven't replaced anything at any of the parks, so where's the 170,000 going for?
right now, if you want to converse, I need to have you come up to the.
Well, I mean, that's a big chunk of money, so Lisa Royce, 17700 Navajo. I mean, where is all that money going to? Is it just maintenance of grass? Or, you know, that's why we've always wanted the FMP to stay a natural place, because it doesn't require any additional money if it's nature trails and, I mean, we've owned that property since, what, 1962, Craig? I mean, and we put a couple little signs up in the parking lot, but, I mean, there hasn't been anything there, so it's Coast Guard Park, Ferry Park, in Fire Barn. I mean, I know Sunnyside put some equipment in. I'm not sure where if that money came from that account, but if we're spending $170,000 a year, what?
There's a lot of labor intense.
Right, well, so that's what I'm saying, it's not equipment-wise.
All adds up quicker than you think.
Right, so we don't get anything from the schools or anything to, if they're practicing there, there's nothing.
Like a stipend or so?
Well, yeah, I mean,
for
from,
use.
what is that, the place in Grand Haven that has all the, yeah, you know, I mean, nothing goes for that, so, I mean, right, so, I mean,
The
it's
taxpayers
mostly-
pay for it.
That's why I can't stand grass. I mean, we spend a lot of money for fertilizer, water, and grass, so.
So, Your Honor, we don't do anything with this then? Do we need a motion and then?
We need to take action on this.
I make a motion that we thank the anonymous donor, and, but we're not interested at this time to.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Yes. Please note that Councilman O'Donnell session retention schedule. This deals with discussions over the past quite a few months, since we have gone live stream on YouTube. with our video retentions. Also in the paper, Ms. Wieringa also included the retention disposal schedule. And in here, council did pass this information, and it was passed back in 2000. I believe they put the policy in place. So it's been asking on here. An example was if the April 2 video would be destroyed after the meeting and the minutes were passed on April 16. April 2 were approved by the city council. Generally, there would be a 2-week retention of the videos. And then there's additional information that was attached to. So, do we want to maintain what we have currently? Once it's out on social media, it's there. Anybody can copy it, duplicate it, share it, and move around to different areas.
So let me get this straight in my head. The city would destroy the April 2nd video after it was approved at the April 16th meeting, but it's still on the internet where people can access it 3-4 months from now, the minutes of that meeting. Explain to me how that works. I'm a computer idiot.
Right now, tonight's minutes would be approved at the next meeting, and at that time, the recording would be destroyed. The recording is there to back up the minutes when they're created, and I can go back and listen if I need to. But once those minutes are approved, that's the legal edition of the minutes, so the recordings are set to go away at that time. You can do the same with videos, or you can keep them. They are not housed on any city equipment because they're on YouTube. So we don't maintain any of that stuff, and a FOIA request would not include any videos because it's not part of our property.
Back to the December 2017 meeting, I can pull it up on YouTube, or
Yes,
I can pull up the full,
you can pull up the full video
okay?
of that meeting. You will not be able to get a recording from me from that meeting, but you can pull up the video.
The only thing that's legal is the minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And so that 2-week retention, or until the next meeting when the minutes are approved, would follow the Michigan Municipal Code that we adopted, that we were gonna follow that.
Correct.
And that's what, that's the Michigan, the MML code, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Right, and that the city adopted in 2000, okay. Yep.
Let me get this straight in my head, and I'm confused here. So they can pull up the video, at least once pull up a meeting of 10 meetings ago. So you can pull up the video. Well, what good is that without sound?
It would have
was
sound
just-
on YouTube, but we also record it on a disc,
Okay,
which I save on my computer until after the minutes are approved, and then that goes away.
so a citizen wants to pull up a past meeting 5-6 meetings ago, even though the April 2nd would be destroyed April 16th. It's available for citizens or us to go back on and
Only on YouTube. It's not available in the office at all.
okay, but
You'd have to go into YouTube to get it.
the official transcript is still in file here, right?
Yes,
The
and
written-
that's the minutes,
Right.
is the official transcript,
Okay, but not the recording.
not the recording, no.
Okay. Gotcha. I understand it now.
We're talking two different things here, I think. We're talking audio recordings, which is housed on the city server, which we delete per the retention schedule. So I think there's no question of following that policy. And the other policy is the YouTube, it's not on the city server, so the city can't delete it. So it's always out there, and once it's out there, there's no harm in having it out there.
So why is this, it seems like we are doing exactly what we passed in 2000. What's
Because you requested a work session on retention. So just to get the clarification out there.
Okay, so
To clarify things.
it's available to our citizens, it's available to city council on YouTube. We have hard copy, but the actual recording, the little tape of tonight's meeting is destroyed. Okay, I got it all cleared on my head.
But it will stay
There's
available,
mud.
but it will stay available on YouTube
Because it's out on the social
because it's out in,
It-
out in the public domain.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not on our,
Okay,
anything of us. And so I get a FOIA request and I don't consider videos at all.
correct, okay.
There's really no policy on the video, but once, there's really, you can't have a policy for, once it's out there. Yeah, yeah. Right.
So the city, so just to clarify, I know as the person that would post a YouTube video, and I've posted more than my fair share of videos, you can make them hidden. The person who posted it could make it hidden. And so what you're saying is the city would not hide those, correct? Okay,
City can go in because it's our homepage, I can go in and delete them or hide them. But with the consensus I'm hearing here, I'm not gonna go in and do anything but change the name tomorrow morning to August 20th. Otherwise, I will not be touching videos.
It's following suit with one of the local municipalities around here too, that they're just holding on to things, so. Okay, since this is a work session, we don't usually entertain questions on that, so. Okay, so. But this is on a work session, but you've spoken in the past, if you care to step up to the podium and ask your question. Okay. Boards and commission is our next work session. So in your packet, there's a lot of information that was attached. First thing that I had highlighted was section 4.27.3 has not actively been enforced on the board and commission, and that relates to missing 4 consecutive regular meetings or 25% of the meetings during a fiscal year. So taking attendance in that roll call at different boards and meetings, we've done that, but there hasn't been any ramifications that somebody has, from one of our board members had missed that, so. There is, and if you'd see down, also the Planning Enabling Act is not.
Okay,
Because
that was,
we had discussed that also. Zoning Board of Appeals does.
Craig, you're the secretary on most of these boards, correct? Do we have a real issue with, I mean, the planning commission had an issue recently with not getting a quorum, but typically, is that an issue?
No, it has not been. Typically, if everybody knows that the planning commission meets the first Thursday of every month, and typically people have their calendars made out farther than that, so if they know they're going to miss a Thursday, they'll notify staff, and if there's going to be 2 or 3 missing, we'll talk about it at that meeting. And do we want to reschedule it, or there's really nothing pressing, we'll just cancel it. It's just unfortunate that we didn't get the communication on the last meetings in June and July.
Kitchell, Lindquist.
Those boards are more informal boards. If there's pressing business and they need to make a recommendation to City Council, we make sure we have a quorum there. If there's not a quorum there, they typically still meet and discuss the business. It's just not an official meeting.
Have anybody that we appoint to these boards that just plain doesn't show up?
No, no.
Okay, typically, they make a reasonable effort to be there.
Yes.
Okay.
Or if jobs have switched, then I know that people in the past have removed themselves willingly from a board because they're traveling too much, their job doesn't allow them to participate, so that has happened in the past.
One thing we watch pretty closely is our zoning board of appeals, because we do publications and public hearings on those, and people come in, we gotta meet the deadlines on, you know, having a publication and then having the meeting date a certain number of days after the publication. So once we publish that, we wanna make sure we have the meeting, so if we know there's gonna be one absent, typically we'll request staff to call the other members and make sure they're gonna be in attendance.
Typically zoning, we don't have a, we get a quorum because we got two alternates.
That's correct.
That was
Well, we
my-
have one right now.
Right, well, that was my question with the planning commission because of the situation. If we could put an alternate, well, according to the state law, we cannot.
That's correct.
Okay, that was the reason I wanted to just put on there.
Yes. I just want to have a feeler out on this board about what you feel about term limits, people serving on these boards to 8 years, and perhaps doing a stipend. I know it's a volunteer, the people that serve on these boards and commission, it's always been volunteer, and they get a Christmas dinner at the end. Other communities do a stipend. If we did a stipend of $25 per meeting, forego the Christmas party, use that money towards that. We could always do a potluck type Christmas party thing here at the city hall. It can still be very nice. I'm just trying to think of ways that maybe that might entice people to volunteer for some of these boards if there was actually money involved. It's just an idea. You guys want to chew?
This Kathy, if we put an 8-year limit on boards, that would be in effect from the time we pass it, not going back. Because we have board members that have been on there 25, 30 years. So we'd go from this date forward, not taking into.
The people that are on now, they would be grandfathered in, but when their time is up, and if they have served more than 8 years or 12 years, whatever this board deems fit, then they're welcome to go to another board if they want to. We've had the rec commission has had 3 open spaces for a couple years. And we had all this hoopla about the park, and yet nobody came forward to serve on that very board.
So your proposal would be that anybody we appoint that is on the board now could apply for reappointment?
To a different board,
To a
not the
different
same board.
Not to, so if you're over 8 years on any particular board, you're off.
Correct.
When your term expires.
When your term expires, yeah.
When this term
Like say
expires.
there's people out there and like, I know on the planning that were just reappointed, so they're not done till like 2021.
Right.
So if we implemented this, they would still be able to serve till 2021. But then at the end, and they would be greatly forewarned, they know that their tenure is up. I mean, some people have made a career out of this.
Non-paying career.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, we're having problems getting people to apply now.
Well, that's why I said, why not give them a small stipend?
Well, a lot of times people don't apply because it's the good old boys network, and they don't feel they're even gonna get a chance.
Because people have been on there for so long.
Because,
Well,
because people have
they're
been
like, well, they're
entrenched
just
there for so
gonna keep
long.
reappointing the same people, so why even bother?
Yeah.
I've heard it, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it, in other communities as well, so that's why I'm thinking, and other communities are now doing term limits. So either we're gonna be proactive to solve the issue, and hopefully that will spur some excitement in people.
Suggestion is we mull over 2 things. Number 1, providing a payment, a minuscule payment to the board members. And number 2, the term limit of 8 years total after your appointment is up.
Correct.
So if
I
you're,
mean, we're subject to 8 years.
And the mayor's too.
So it just seems like we've been consistent. That's where I came up with that, just so that the city is consistent. I don't mean to leave you out, Scott.
let me throw this out there, Craig. Just a thought, we might want to consider exempting the Construction Board of Appeals. We have to be a licensed contractor beyond there. We typically we haven't had a full board in, how long, Craig? It's been,
We haven't had a full board since it's been together, and I don't think we ever had a meeting either.
well, that's true, but we still need board members, and we have,
need,
the qualifications, you have to be a licensed contractor, electrician, builder, whatever. You have to have a state license to participate on that board.
Which limits availability for
With-
people in the community to.
Right, that, well, and then you have to be I don't know, do you have to be technically a city resident to be on there? So you could be an at-large from, yeah. That one is particularly hard to fill, I begged all my people I know with licenses, including Patrick, at times.
Meetings are brutal.
Well, but still, if we don't have it, it has to go to Grand Haven, or where does it go from there? If there's a appeal.
sure, I would have to look into it. It's been a while since I've looked at it.
Well, I know at one point in time it went to Bruce Dodge in Grand Haven, whether the state laws or things have changed, and I don't want him in here at all. Yeah. So that's why that board, we might want to make an exception for that particular board.
So I'm hearing that there's a consensus to move forward with this, to do another work session to. Per se at this point of term limits of some sort on our subcommittees.
Yes.
Or, okay,
Yes.
Yes.
possibly to
Yes.
revisit this, so whether it's an 8-year or a 12-year commitment or so, and then also the second part of that would be like the stipend, given whatever the.
Craig, so this isn't gonna come up for a while. Let's put it on to revisit this, second meeting in September. At that time, could you kind of give us an idea what kind of dollars we're looking at? If it's $25 a meeting across the board for, if we're looking at $1,000, well, it's gonna be like probably $6,000-7,000 a year, wouldn't you think?
Have be $210 a month for the planning commission times 12, $2,400 is for planning commission. That's if they met every month.
Proposing,
The one that I threw out there was just a figure.
well, you're proposing, to make a stipend for all our boards, correct? Okay, so that's $2,400 a year for one board. Now you got, what, 4 other boards?
Recreation, beautification, Kitcher Linquist, zoning board of appeals.
Do you think by the work session in September, you could give us a number that, what numbers we're actually talking here?
Yep.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, and it's probably, but, with the budget constraints we already have, I just don't see where, I'd like to see the total number before,
So we'll take a closer look at that in September. Any other discussion with this? Scott?
I have one.
I maintain that if anybody is gonna serve on a board, or for God's sake, city council, if you're gonna do that for the money, don't.
Sorry.
The other boards will make more than you.
Spring Lake Township pays everybody.
Do you think it's really helped with
And
their
a lot
recruitment
more than
efforts
25
compared
bucks a
to
meeting.
talking to neighbors and saying, hey, I think you'd be a great candidate for this and we could really use your help? I
It's
just think
been
we,
done. I've talked to several people to try to get them on this recreation.
yeah.
It makes me wonder if people were just worried about one park instead of all the parks. It makes me wonder.
Well, and to your point, Rich.
1 hour a month.
I've been, what, 7 years, 6, 7 years? I don't remember. Long time, and I beg people. I mean, I've literally, I've literally begged them. I grabbed Pat by the nose and gave him an application.
It was already filled out.
All you had to do was sign it, I mean,
That's how I got on too, begged,
yeah, I mean,
begged.
So we have the consensus to revisit this in September, having more
I
concrete
definitely
information.
want
And
to see
Scott
some,
needs to share out.
Yeah, I just had a question. So we don't have a youth advisory council?
Correct.
no, we couldn't get
Okay.
anybody on it.
All right, because yeah, it's sitting here, you know, at the beginning, they wanted 7 members on that youth advisory council, and then one of those members would be appointed to the recreation committee. Yeah. As an ex officio, and then 7 members on the rec committee, but we did get one more applicant for the rec committee, so we're gonna be closer to what we need.
Time I got an application for Pat, she said, don't show up in my yard no more.
Moving down to 7E, code enforcement. In here, I know that it was focused on the short-term rental, but I think the discussion should be opened up to code enforcement throughout the whole city. So, Mike, I think you asked for this one too.
Yeah, we've had, I get all kinds of people complaining about garbage in their neighbor's yard, falling down trees that don't get taken care of. One in particular, there's about 150 foot of picket fence that's been there for at least 20 years. We need to, I don't know how, you know, Craig obviously doesn't have time to run around the city every day and look in people's yards, so do we need to have some kind of, like a notice at, a poster or some of that nature at, like at our desk where you come in to pay your taxes or such what that, you know, hey, if you have an issue, you need to report it so we can take care of it? How, I guess I'm looking for some suggestion here as far as how we can enforce our laws and get, I don't know how you get, you know, you hate to turn neighbor against neighbor, but, you know, any suggestions, Greg? I know you're overworked as it is.
I try to get through the city every so often just to see what's going on out there, and then when I notice something, you know, we notice the people to correct it. Some of this is, a lot of it is complaint driven, that we'll get a call or a comment from somebody that this is happening, and we check it out and respond appropriately.
But typically you drive by on the street, you don't go in people's driveways. I mean, that's not, so you would not physically go in the driveway to investigate unless a neighbor complained, correct?
We can't go on people's property, no, to investigate a complaint.
So how does it get resolved?
Well, typically I gotta see it. That's why I like to drive by and look at it. One person says it's an issue, and it might not be an issue according to the books on the city.
It says in 150.99, the penalty, the first offense is 100, the second is 250, and then the second repeat is 500. Maybe if we made it hurt a little bit more, would be one way.
As far as the
Violation costs. Another thing that I thought about, and I know we're on a strict budget, but when you look at other communities surrounding us, a lot of people hire a part-time enforcer. It's usually an off-duty sheriff or police officer looking to make a little bit extra where they can go on and investigate properties, you know, to prevent blight, which can be an environmental hazard, can be a health hazard. I know we've had it on Cecilia Lane. It's always a double-edged sword for a neighbor to call in on another neighbor. But however, there are laws, there are ordinances I'm mainly concerned about the health hazards and the environmental hazards that are not being kept within the city limits.
Well, let me ask you this, Greg, if we had an enforcement officer, he has no more authority to go on private property than you do, correct?
No.
So that's like, you know,
In years past, the city's hired an intern, and part of his job was to help with enforcement. It just takes a little bit of time to drive around, grab some pictures, get them on the computer, ask staff to generate a letter to this person, do the follow-up. And the interns always helped with that, which helped immensely. A few years back, we did have a police officer do code enforcement for us. When there was a part-time police officer, we just don't find part-time deputies or police officers anymore with the job market the way it is.
Are you saying the city used to be proactive and now we're just strictly reactive?
No, it was pretty much the same, reactive. It was just help be a little more out there a little bit more than what we are now with having an intern.
the people,
Old trucks or whatever sitting there just because somebody insures them and puts a plate on it. Yet, if they took it on the road, the state police said that is not roadworthy vehicle.
There's a property in the city where there's 3 vehicles on there. 2 of them haven't moved in years. So we generated a letter saying they got an inoperable vehicle on their property. They come in a week later with show me their driver's license, they got tabs, they got registration and insurance on it. And it still doesn't move for another 2 years.
It's a big complaint that I get. The neighbors don't want to look at it. But you know, where do you draw the line? You know, that if you can take that car and put it on the road, that's one thing. But you know, you leave a car sit, you can't turn the engine on it, it's locked. It's locked up. You're not gonna be able to drive that car anywhere.
complaints I've been getting is stuff in like backyards, maybe behind the house where you can't physically see it from the road.
Those are the tough ones.
So basically, we have to turn neighbor against neighbor to get some of the stuff cleaned up.
If we get a complaint from a neighbor, we can't go on the property to see it. I'll say to the person, I can't go on that property, and a lot of times they'll offer, well, you can come on my property and look at it.
What about, what about, the building inspector? Is he allowed? Under the blight ordinance, I mean, your job description is different than his.
Well, I've always asked anybody out there that works for the city, including the Public Works Department, when they're out and about in the city, they see an issue that is a enforcement issue, to let me know, and we'll address it. Sometimes that doesn't work as well as I would like it to.
Public Works isn't ratting people out, as it were.
Right, they got their things that they're doing, and
I understand.
Mr. Twell, were you gonna?
Well, I was just going to say there are ways to see things that can't be seen from the road, and there are people who provide that service. I mean, if there is an issue that requires a picture or a view of an infraction, there's ways to get that picture. But, you know, it's something that I'm uncomfortable with, and I know a lot of other people aren't too happy with having something fly over their house taking pictures of things, but the airspace is the airspace and belongs to everyone, and there's no getting around it. The drone ordinances that are out there state just that. They can fly right through your yard. But, I mean, we're talking about the very ordinances or laws, however you want to refer to them, that we put in place, yet we have no enforcement, or the enforcement that we have is lacking. We either step up and enforce the way we know we can legally, put up or shut up. Let's do something about it, or take it off the books. I mean, it's there for a reason.
It's the same clamor we're hearing about the rental ordinance as well.
Well,
Be
some of these
consistent.
people, you know, during the summer months, everybody has a travel trailer and they want to take it out and use it. So 2 or 3 days before they go away, they put it in the driveway and get it ready and park it in the front of the yard. And you don't want to, do you want to cite those people?
I received one of those letters many years ago.
But, oh,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
does the sheriff's department have a drone? Could you look into that, see if the sheriff's department, so if there's a complaint made, you physically can't go on the property, but we could, if the sheriff's department had a drone, we could just shoot it up and then write the citation.
There are services available from local people.
Well, why should we pay if the sheriff's department has one? We already pay them.
So at this point, there's laws on the books, we have enforcement on the books. There's policy and procedures already in place. So we just.
Well, we need to enforce it, you know, I get 4 or 5 complaints, and typically it's this one house in particular. Every time I have breakfast, I get a blast. Apparently, you can't go in the backyard.
What are we looking for staff to do at this point? Are we going to?
We need to discuss a way to find, and staff recommend a way we can actually enforce, you know, and maybe,
Which ones are really truly enforceable? In, I guess, that would be up to this council, I think, to see which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to throw, which ones are worth saving, which ones are going.
Because we've already discussed with the
After.
rental, we're gonna let that sit for a year.
You know,
well, my
We're gonna
thought,
come back and revisit.
because I agree, like boats and travel trail, you know, in the summer, people use it, they come and go all summer.
But that's 4 or 5 months out of the year, and then they sit. And
Yeah, they're not supposed to sit.
well,
I got a
I mean,
complaint, the guy can't sell his house because.
I mean, I'm a
there's boats
property
sitting
rights
there.
advocate, and you know, having using some strong language, having the boot of government on you for your trailer sitting in your driveway for 4 days or more because you're airing it out to use it. Come on. But there are those cases, particularly on Cecilia Lane, where that RV sat for decades. And it was allowed to sit because they put a sticker on the plate. That's all they had to do. And it became a major issue. And those are the things we need to address, I think. When a complaint comes up for an obvious ordinance violation, and if we have to gather evidence, then we should do our due diligence and take care of it. Otherwise, what's it there for?
People that park their boats all year, and some people are not residents here. They own a home here. So they leave for the winter, and there sits everything on their property. And
When the ordinance allows if it's in a rear or side yard.
We went through a
not
whole
necessarily
issue
in their side yard.
decades ago. We went through issues. What's a front yard? What's a side yard?
Front yards or the street side of a house.
Except when
Unless
it's
you
on the
live on the
bayou.
lake.
No.
If you live on the lake,
No.
that's your front.
No, not according to the zoning ordinance.
Well, according to the people when you buy it, that's your front yard.
Yeah, I
I mean, I
understand.
go with the state of Michigan, that is.
Okay.
How-
Trump a
So
city.
do we,
Just a quick question. You know, we get satellite imagery all the time from, for the zoning board and planning commission and such one. Is that detailed enough to see blight in the backyard? Would that constitute a enforceable action at that point, because we have evidence of it?
A lot of communities do that. They use aerial photography for, especially for assessing. They'll look at last year's and they'll look at this year's and see if there's any new sheds on any property, any new buildings, and then they make adjustments.
We don't have an intern until next summer, right?
We haven't had an intern here in the city manager's office for probably, what, 6 years?
Oh, I thought we had one last summer.
The Kitcher Link was doing, has hired one for the last 3 years.
Obviously don't have time to sit and look at, you know, the satellite imagery of the, is there somebody on staff? Staff is pretty overworked as it is, aren't they?
I'm sure staff are equipped to do.
Yes.
You're not getting a raise. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
I mean, you know, you start getting, once you've been on here, Rich, I don't know how many complaints you get, but the longer you stay on here, the more you're gonna get. And we're getting letters from people that kind of agree here that we need to start enforcing
And
the bad
typically,
ones, you know.
and typically it's 2 or 3 properties, you know, you may have 1 or 2 in your neighborhood, Kathy has 1 in her neighborhood, I got 1 in my neighborhood. It's 1 or 2 properties, we're not talking about turning the city into Nazi, enforcement, but on the other hand, you have a right to have, safe environment. And there's issues that, and like Craig says, without some kind of photographic evidence, you can't go on the property.
Not against people wanting to have stuff, put it in a shed, rent sheds or whatever they call them, store and lock,
Well,
or whatever, but just to have it
there's
scattered about.
we have an ordinance that says, hey, if you have a travel trailer, you can park in your side yard, so much feet from behind the house and stuff. As long as it's properly legal, as far as, roadworthy, and it's parked where it's supposed to be, that's not an issue in my mind. I'm talking about, piles of garbage, junk cars.
People are talking about the blight.
Yeah.
Blight is mainly what people are getting tired of looking at, especially if you live next door to it or across the street from it.
We're trying to sell a place.
Trying to sell your home, and what's the one thing that they hear from the realtor is, well, you ain't got a neighbor problem.
Okay, so where do we want to revisit this again?
Well, I think we need to come up with some kind of solution.
I
Whether,
don't think in a work session we can put it back on
Yeah,
an agenda
well-
item to.
well, let's give,
Think about it.
yeah, let's all think about it. Craig's, he's going on vacation for a week. He's got a whole week to think about it. So, when you get back, kind of kick it around, maybe talk to Matt, maybe talk to Kick, see, if they have a drone available, that if we have a complaint, we can,
County GIS does the same thing.
well, however, but I don't see us needing to, I hear a private contractor, if we can get the service through the county.
Any further discussion with this item? A bunch of different discussions that took place during this. So, hearing none, we'll move down to public comments. I was just looking over at
Lisa Royce, 17700 Navajo. Wow, that was a load of information there, and I have a lot to say. First of all, I think city council should follow the zoning ordinances when they come up, because how should we do it if they can't? We had this whole big issue last year, and I know y'all know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people that did go for positions for boards, and they were turned down for people that have multiple positions on other boards. So good people have come forward. Ivy Barnes was one of them. She was the next vote getter when Mr. Mattson decided to decline, and she was turned away. Kathleen just left, but the sign ordinance is a big problem for me. I mean, there was a violation there, and we went through this whole thing, and I was shut down by Mr. DeWitt and Mr. O'Donnell for saying that they were gonna silence me with prejudice so I couldn't bring something up again. That isn't the way that you treat citizens of the city of Ferrisburg. Mr. O'Donnell's front yard, I've drove by it several times, has a bunch of concrete blocks and all kinds of stuff in front of it. I don't think any of the city council should be taking people's direct thing when you're at they should send them to Craig. You can't do anything about it personally. It has to go through proper city channels. So I think if you're gonna open that up, I mean, I asked Craig before, the parking ordinance in the city of Ferrisburg, I talked to a police officer. He said, if it's not marked, you can't give somebody a ticket. The only streets that are marked are busy thoroughfares. There's no parking on any one of our streets. People don't know you can't park there, and you can't, the city of Grand Haven has them parked, or signs up all over the place. No parking from December to April, from this time to this time. You will get a ticket. I don't think it's enforceable, from what my police officer friend told me in another community, that you can enforce that if it's not listed. Did you ever check into that, Craig?
Checked with the sheriff's department and the city attorney, and if it's in the city code, it's enforceable.
I just, you know, people that are coming from out of town, they don't know. I mean, wow. There was a lot of information there. I think the public should be in on, if you're gonna enforce stuff, it needs to go for everybody. And the other thing about the rec commission, why nobody is applying for the rec commission, the meeting's at 5:30. Most people get out of work at 5 o'clock. They can't get here if they have a family, have dinner, or do whatever. They'd be going one from another. It's a horrible time. That is probably why you're having a serious problem getting people on the rec commission. So, thank you.
The rec commission has to be at 5:30, so we could move it to 7.
No, because of the ZBA.
That's the same night as the ZBA. Can we change nights?
Well, that's something we can look at.
Recreation Commission, at the next meeting will be on the first Thursday, which is the Planning Commission night.
Okay, well, let's put that on the agenda for that, see if we can, I think Lisa's right, that it would be inconvenient for me. Yeah, so.
And for me, serving on the Dunes Preserve Board, I work till at least 5, sometimes 6 or later at night, and the meeting's at 6:30. So a lot of times I don't even get home.
I know why that one's at 6:30. We look at
Typically, the board set their own times for meetings, meeting times and dates. There's no set date that they have to meet. It can be on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. And it's just, if you want to bring up a different time or date, that should be a board decision on when they meet, when most of them, majority can meet.
board agendas as they come up, like the ZBA put it on there, do we want to change the time, days, whatever, on all the boards? See if we can't get some board input, these times have been set for, years? Maybe with, like Lisa says, with today's working environment.
We changed council time. A few years ago, council used to be 7:30, and we backed it to 7, so.
Right.
You discuss things with the boards.
Our board always meets at 5:30, and then so does Harbor Transit. I've been on both those boards, and they didn't really have any issues of people getting there.
Well,
I mean, you're gonna, it's all, it depends. I mean, some people are gonna make the earlier ones, some people 6:30, some people 7.
Right.
It just depends on who's on the boards.
Well, if you're trying to attract candidates, you gotta be
flexible
and have a good time to do it.
Or at least
And
consider.
for people to work at 5, it's hard to make a 5:30 meeting across town.
Yeah, I think we need to, I don't know how we can address that, but I think we should at least
We'll start
discuss
at
it.
start at the subcommittees and gather information that way.
Yes.
Mrs. Tuckles, did you want to speak? Okay.
lesson for me. I've never reported anybody, nor do I ever want to. But when somebody enforces the ordinances now,
Correct.
Mr. Bessinger.
Mr. Bessinger.
and when somebody reports an issue, is it documented? Yes.
Sheriff's Department also assists if there's a issue with parking or noise, those kind of issues. They typically handle those kind of items.
So every report is documented.
Typically, yes. I'm not sure every, but some people, when they file a complaint, call or remain anonymous, no name is taken.
Yeah, because the issue I have is, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on, which one I was with, anything. My issue is, city decide which ordinance gets enforced and which do not. Ordinance is on the books, enforced, not being enforced. You can't decide, this I'm gonna look into, this I'm not. Too much power, right? So, you know, Grand Haven has mechanisms right from cell phone. On. That I hope I never get to the point where we get to report any of them. You feel from a policy perspective, you cannot be selective in which ones you look at, which ones you don't, which ones you enforce, and which ones you. That's a real problem.
Sandy Tuggle, 17939 Dogwood. The beginning of public comment, the first public comment, I think Jean asked a question as if agenda items were able to have comments as they came up, and I believe the answer was yes. So I was a little confused as to why I was not allowed to speak during public comment or during the work session on that item.
We don't take comments during the public work session generally. Generally, we don't. And so then I was calling you back and you chose not to. So, okay. It was a little bit misleading in the beginning, and I know that's happened at other meetings before too, where it was really, sometimes you'd allow comments during work session and sometimes you wouldn't. And so I think we need to be upfront the next time there's a work session of what, if people are able to comment during that time or not, because at the beginning it was asked if you would allow comments during that, and the answer was yes. I just think everybody should be treated equally who wants to speak, and the same rules should apply to the same, to everybody equally. And I totally agree with what Jean was saying about the ordinance enforcement, and it should kind of be all or nothing when it comes to that. A question I had about when the work session was about the retention, Deb was mentioning that the audio recordings are destroyed after the minutes are approved of the next meeting, and I know when I was requesting audio a couple years ago, I was able to get audio quite a ways back. So I was wondering if you're going to destroy the video but not destroy the audio, what the difference is there. Right? Right, but I'm just saying the audios that I had requested from months and months before were not destroyed.
They are destroyed.
Okay.
As time permits, I go through files.
Okay. And then my other question about the retention of the YouTube videos, that is something that you guys have the option to delete, hide, whatever, because it is the city of Ferrysburg does own that account. So I guess I'm just not clear as to how, because the city owns that account and has control over that account, what's going to stop those videos from being hidden or deleted? Because the only people that do have control over that are you guys.
Once it's on YouTube, it's out of our control.
No, it's not.
I asked the city clerk for clarification about that,
Mhm.
and she said that the city would not be deleting the YouTube videos.
Okay.
Okay.
As long as that's on
Even though the
record.
city functions as an administrator
Yep.
and they could do that,
Okay.
she said that she would not
Good.
delete them.
Good, good.
Okay.
The only thing I'm going to go in and do is change the title on it.
Okay.
Because right now it says like unknown or something. It's something
Right.
funny.
Okay.
And so then tomorrow or Wednesday, as time permits, I go in and change the title so you know which meeting it pertains to.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm not going to do anything with it.
So if somebody did FOIA, would you be able to provide them a link to that video?
They can go on YouTube and find it themselves.
Okay, so I guess I'm just curious as to why that is that something that
It's
you
not-
wouldn't want to?
Huh?
I was just wondering
that?
if there was a reason why you wouldn't want to provide the link to the video if somebody was requesting
They can-
information from a meeting.
They can go on the website and follow the link to the
Okay.
YouTubes.
Okay.
That's there.
And then my two last things. I did have my application for the rec commission filled out, and it was a time thing. I have a full-time job and a 4-year-old, so really the earliest I could make a meeting is 7 o'clock. So intention, and there was a comment made about, somebody liking only certain parks or something like that, and I took a little bit of offense to that because I've come to almost every planning commission meeting, city council meeting, and tried to apply to the rec commission, and without luck. And there's also been a few incidences over this period of time where I haven't had the most friendly of reception, so it's been a little bit tough. As far as when you guys were talking about blight and environmental hazards, I would also ask you to consider all the glyphosate that's being dumped on the parks. It has been known as a carcinogen, and there was a $269 million judgment awarded for that. So it's not just a theory now that it causes cancer, but it is proven to cause cancer. So I would hope that you guys would take a look at that. Glyphosate, Roundup, herbicide.
Weed killer, yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't know the scientific name.
Yeah, but it's really concerning, especially as a parent, to go to these parks and see these danger poison signs. And I think there are so many other ways to take care of our resources without dumping poison on them and putting our children and ourselves at risk. Thank you.
Going back to your discussion on enforcement and how to handle it, we had a gentleman and a lady come to visit us from the Army Corps of Engineer and DEQ, and they knock on the door and they said, "We don't find a dock permit for your dock." Well, the dock had been in there since 1984, at which time it didn't have a dock permit. What year was that they started them, Brian? 94, okay, and that was put in 87. Anyway, so we asked, why are we being singled out? How many of the docks on the bayou have permits? And they said, probably not very many of them, but we had a complaint. And so it was from 16929 Royal Avenue. So then we received a letter from the DEQ saying that we might be infringing on their riparian rights. So we removed our dock, went and got a new dock permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. Had a riparian expert come in and he said, actually, it looks to us like they're infringing on your riparian rights, and where your dock was is fine, but you have to go to court to get it settled. So anyways, so it was a knock on the door. That's how they approached us before a letter or anything was sent. So I would think that just, starting out with a letter or a knock on a door when you have a complaint from someone saying we had, received information and we were following up, and whether you do it by letter or by a knock on the door is, yeah. So anyways, that's how the Army Corps of Engineer and the DEQ do it. An interesting point is they went out and he came back and he said, what year was that dock over there put in, which belonged to 16929 Rural Avenue? We said approximately 2007. He says, well, they don't have a permit either. So it was a $500 fine for them tattling on their neighbor. But so anyways, I just wanted to put that out there. But that's not the reason I'm here. On May 3rd, Craig sent a letter, an email saying that he had notified Stacy Pummel that there was a new ordinance on the books, and it's brought to your attention that yours is less than 7 days. A letter was mailed today asking you to change your listing, and it was changed from 2 to 7 days to 3 to 7 days. Now it's back to 2 to 7 days. So, and I think basically at the end of one of the meetings, she told me, I don't remember the exact words, I should have brought that in, that she was not interested in following the ordinance. So I have a list. Before she started the 7-day rentals, there were 7 partial rentals. Lo and behold, there was not one last night nor tonight, which there may be another partial rental, but looking on the books, there's several partial rentals for August, the end of August through September, 2 or 3 day rentals. So nothing has been done there. The last 2 weeks were very tiring. Lots of fires every day, all night. And I went out at 11 o'clock in the morning to mow my lawn, came in, my eyes were watering. The person was sitting out there stoking, stirring the ashes up. This last week there were 12 adults there, and they were playing a lot of volleyball, cussing and swearing, using the F word. Everything was SHIT this or that, but they use the F word a lot. And we had our grandchildren there, which we very rarely get to have our children there, grandchildren. They're 5 and 12. So we ended up, telling them that it would be best not to play in the yard, that we'd take them to the state parks, which we did, and they enjoyed that. But we felt we should be able to use our own property, but we couldn't. Did all of you receive, Craig, did you forward that email I sent to everyone of the sand sculpture? Did you all know what it was? Didn't know what it was?
Complain against that.
Okay, but we say that this short-term rental ordinance is to preserve the city's unique character. Is this our character? Okay, and in the ordinance it says that requirements for all rentals, posting of information. The following information should be posted in a conspicuous place within the dwelling. And it goes on to say that fireworks, prohibited noises, and burning. And that fire goes all night long every night. We have doubled our electrical bill for running the air. We can never have our windows open because the fires burn all night. And yes, we can call the fire department, and we did that once. And then the people came out, and they said that was not a problem because they were out there by the fire now. It says there has to be an extinguisher or a hose. There was neither one. They never put their fires out. I have never seen anyone. I can get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and see embers flying, and they don't use the cover. We put in 7 new fire detectors in our home to make sure that it's been dry. It's not. And I guess I have lots of pictures. They park. So I guess the answer is you expect me to call the sheriff every time they're parked in the wrong place, or I find if I do anything offensive.
Sheriff's Department would be available on the weekend if this is occurring on the weekend when the office is closed.
But even though your procedure says that they have to provide parking instructions, they have to provide the fire ordinance with all that's listed in there, put the fire out. but they're not doing that.
One of those two jurisdictions, whether it's with the city or whether it's with the sheriff's department or both.
Well, I have contacted Craig, and I don't, it seems like, you know, you could just write an email and say, listen, it's not being followed, the fires are burning. You know, and I don't like to call the sheriff or the fire department. I mean, have you ever watched someone's house burn down with someone burning up in it? I have. Yes, and I saw a human being being burned up in a fire. It's horrific. I don't want to waste their time. If I take them away and someone's life is lost, that's not good. I just think that somehow the city can get across to these people what the ordinance means.
City, then they're kept on record, and after multiple complaints, then when her she loses her opportunity to rent, and then there's other ramifications that can follow.
But she's already had 7 violations just on the length of time. Just on her less than 7 days. I've actually seen the people come and go. I have pictures of their license plates. I don't know. Go ahead and move on. Okay.
You trying to get me fired? You keep throwing my sign down.
No.
So, but Mrs. Young, there are, the policies and procedures are in place for the short-term rent, so I would just encourage you to continue to talk to the sheriff's department, call the fire department if the fire is burning and there's nobody there, if you feel endangered with something like that, and then reaching out and contacting the city.
Right, now living on a private road, Dwayne has been there for 73 years and never had a problem getting in or out. This year, we have been blocked in several times. And we called the police, and they said they'd contact Craig, which they didn't, did they? No, they didn't. They didn't do anything.
Sheriff's Department write tickets on a private road? But, yeah, I see, I don't know if they,
If that truck was on their private
if
property.
it's on your
that's-
property, you
Right,
can.
but now, I had my 55th year class reunion. I was supposed to be outside of Big Rapids, east of Big Rapids at 6 o'clock. So, we couldn't leave. There wasn't anywhere to leave. I mean, they had us blocked right in. The neighbors said, we called the sheriff's department, and it got us nowhere, except now they're mad.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
said,
very
you
nice.
called the sheriff. We've called the sheriff twice in 12 years, and it's been this summer. And okay, I'm 73 years old, and I've never had to approach a city before for anything. And I have to say, it's not been a pleasant experience. So, thank you.
City managers report.
No report?
Okay, city council members. Councilmember Blees.
Last week, we did have that public hearing for the rec committee regarding the name change to Coast Guard Park, and the consensus was to leave the name the same as Coast Guard Park. But we did decide to move forward on some of the memorial plaques and updates and signage markers for Coast Guard, and then Councilman O'Donnell will be working on that and then give us updates on that.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Councilmember Carlson.
Ferrisburg Nature Preserve, we had, at the meeting in July 17th, we had a Calvin College professor come and give us a presentation on how we can affect the dune that is slowly encroaching onto our pavilion building, and try to make our fencing that we have for erosion control more attractive instead of it making look so man-made. The intern is working out really well. The meeting tomorrow night is canceled, so our next meeting won't be until September. And the Dunes Preserve Board is still moving forward with how we're going to do a plaque or something in honor of Elaine Kinkelman, her long service to the board. Talking about long tenures of someone, she served on the KLH board since its inception in, when was that, Craig? 70s?
The board actually came to Gord in the 80s.
That's all. Will do.
No report. Harvard Transit Board accepted the resignation of our current, well, ex now, transportation director. We're going to be defining the job a little better and putting it out for a bit, advertisement for the replacement. That's it.
Smith Bayou Chili Cook-Off is this Saturday. It's for Gracious Grounds. It'll be our 12th year, so we're looking forward to a great event. So, suggestion is the September 4 council meeting would be on a Tuesday. Do we direct staff to continue to pursue us to have our meeting on Tuesday the 4th at 7 p.m.? Or
We have anything urgent on the agenda?
Right now, we have a contract amendment for the sewer authority. It's not time urgent. And to take the recommendation from the Recreation Commission regarding the name change at Coast Guard Park. And there's an application to the Recreation Commission. Those are the items I have at this time. Nothing that can't wait till September 16th. Right.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Beach 2 this week.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe September 4th. Maybe not.
Can't shoot with the youngs. Okay.
Ready, we'll cancel.
Have a nice vacation.
Thanks.
Okay.